how do we read the direction of the mind beyond the graph? An egogram turns the 6 minds inside us into numbers and shows their distribution as a graph. But the heart of egogram interpretation is not simply looking at the shape of the line. The heart of it is noticing which energy comes forward first. Torbit TA does not divide the mind into good or bad personality types. It looks at how energy is arranged among the 6 ego states and in what order that energy tends to move. So instead of saying, this person is originally this kind of person, it is more accurate to say, in this kind of situation, this energy is likely to activate first. When people meet a situation, they often bring forward the mind they use most. That is why, when we read an egogram, we first look at the high scores. A high-scoring ego state is more likely to lead the first response in that situation. If 2 minds are similarly high, we need to read them together. They may take turns coming forward, or they may move together in the same scene. In an individual egogram, a difference of 2 or 3 points does not always need to be treated as large. In many cases, those scores can be read as almost the same height. Of course, when we look at the average of many people, a 2 or 3 point difference can matter a lot. But in one person's graph, that difference may be smaller than it first appears. If 3 or more ego states are almost equally high, the mind that comes forward may change often depending on the situation. On some days, the person may look firm. On other days, the person may look warm. On other days, the person may look very cautious. Because of this, people like this may sometimes be called hard to read. But that does not mean they are strange. It means several energies are standing together with similar strength. On the other hand, a low score does not mean that mind is absent. It may simply be less visible. A middle level score is similar. That mind is still there inside the person. But because a higher energy comes forward first, it may not show clearly on the outside. There is one more thing we need to see. Just because a mind exists does not mean it immediately appears as behavior. For a mind to come out as behavior, we also need to look at the channel of expression and the device of restraint. In this sense, FC plays an important role. FC is like a channel that pushes inner thoughts and feelings outward. So even when another ego state is high, if FC is active, that response is more likely to show on the outside. Inner standards, warmth, judgment, and needs can more easily become expression. But when AC is high, the story changes. It is like the engine is running while the brake is also being pressed. Something is clearly moving inside, but it does not come out easily. Instead of open expression, the person may first read the room, adjust, hold back, or restrain themselves. So in egogram interpretation, we do not look only at which ego state is high. We also read how that ego state comes out and what may be pressing it down. Even with the same high score, a different expression structure can make a person look completely different. For example, if CP and FC are both high, the person is likely to express their standards and beliefs quite clearly in words. In contrast, if CP and AC are both high, the person may have strict standards and strong judgment inside, while appearing to endure and adjust on the outside. They may look quiet, but inside, they may feel frustrated for a long time. However, when NP and AC are both high, this does not mean the wish to help others is being suppressed. The person may not step to the front, but they may still help actively from behind. So even with the same high score, the result can look very different depending on which channel and which restraint device are present together. Even when the behavior is the same, the mind that moves may be different. Just because the behavior looks the same from the outside does not mean the mind behind it is the same. For example, imagine that someone steps forward and takes on difficult work before a holiday. The visible behavior is the same. But the mind that pushed that behavior forward may be completely different. If CP is high, the person may have moved from responsibility and standards, thinking, at a time like this, I should do it. If NP is high, the person may have stepped forward because they felt sorry for someone who would have to struggle alone. If A is high, the person may have judged that doing a little work now would make things easier later. If FC is high, the person may have stepped forward because they liked the atmosphere of people gathering. Once they are there, though, their mind may move more toward enjoyment than toward the work itself. If AC is high, the person may have moved because they were conscious of how others would see them. They may have first thought about how it would look if they did not join. If SC is high, the person may have moved because they wanted to turn someone's expectation or provocation upside down. The feeling, do you think I can't do it, may have become a source of strength. In this way, even when the behavior looks the same, the mind moving inside it may be different. So when we read a person, we should not conclude from behavior alone. Before we stop at the outside appearance, we need to look at the direction of the mind that pushed the behavior forward. Now let's look in the opposite direction. Even when the behaviors are different, the mind underneath may be the same. Think of a situation where a child or a junior colleague has made a mistake. One person scolds strongly, another person waits quietly. Another person gives comfort first. From the outside, these behaviors look completely different. But if A stood strongly at the center, all of these actions may have come from the same root. The person judged what would create the best result in that moment and then chose the behavior that fit. So when we try to understand someone, we should not look only at what did they do. We also need to ask which mind chose that behavior. Everyone lives by holding on to value in their own way. Whether they show it on the outside or keep it only inside, it is hard to endure if the feeling, I have my own usefulness and meaning, completely collapses. A person with high CP may feel personal value in setting principles and taking responsibility. A person with high NP may confirm their meaning by caring for and helping someone. A person with high A may feel strength in logic and accurate judgment. A person with high FC may gain energy by showing and expressing themselves. A person with high AC may confirm their value by fitting well with the whole and cooperating. A person with high SC may feel their presence by not being swept away by the ordinary and by enduring and rising again in their own way. This does not mean one person is better or worse than another. It means each person has a different place where they feel, I am alive. Egogram interpretation is the work of reading that place. There is something we must not miss in egogram interpretation. An egogram can show many things, but the graph does not tell the person's whole story. So when we read numbers, we also need to think about the time, relationships, and ways of enduring that stand behind those numbers. Some graphs contain many traces of upbringing. Some graphs contain the result of enduring for a long time. Some graphs contain the shaking of an event the person is passing through right now. The same low score can be a place of lack for one person and a place that has been pressed down for a long time for another. The same high score can be a source of strength for one person and the result of having endured alone for too long for another. That is why we should not conclude from one number. Egogram interpretation must keep an attitude of care until the end. It is not always better to keep pushing the analysis just because we have seen the numbers. In some cases, stopping without asking more deeply may be the better interpretation for that person. Before we ask whether the interpretation is accurate, there are times when we must first ask whether it may hurt the other person. In the end, interpreting an egogram is, before reading lines, a way of carefully treating one person. Looking at a graph is not simply looking at the height of bars or lines, it is reading beyond the graph what kind of energy arrangement that person is using to cross the world. And it is meeting that mind carefully in a way that does not harm the person. To summarize, the basic principle of egogram interpretation is to read score, order, expression, and restraint together. First, we look at what is high. Then we look at what comes forward first. If several ego states are at similar heights, we also look at whether they move together or take turns. Then we look at whether that energy is expressed outward through FC or adjusted and held back through AC. We also need to separate behavior from mind. The same behavior may have been moved by different minds. Different behaviors may have been chosen by the same mind. We also remember that each person has a different place where they feel personal value. And finally, we do not forget the time, relationships, and ways of enduring behind the numbers. Reading an egogram means carefully meeting the mind of one person. An egogram is not a table for defining someone. It is a map for reading what kind of energy arrangement a person uses to cross the world. More important than reading the height of the graph is the attitude of meeting the direction of that person's mind in a way that does not harm them. So egogram interpretation is not only an analysis skill, it is also a careful process of tuning how we meet and understand one person.